Sometimes to live is an act of courage. I won't let his death define him, but instead, I'll celebrate his life. One of my fondest memories is of my grandpa. It was sunny in a state that always rains. And I had just turned 21. So I drove to the nearest mini mart and walked out with a case of beer and headed straight to my grandpa's. I always told myself prior to turning 21 that when that day came, that's the first thing I would do. And that's exactly what I did. He passed away recently, and although he lived a long life, his death still haunts me. I still can't believe he's gone. Sometimes I wake up and I feel like he's still here. Like I can hop into my car and just drive down and go to his house and just sit down and have a beer with him. I was always so used to him being around. I guess you can say when he passed, it just doesn't feel like he's gone. But deep down, I know he's gone. You see, my grandpa was a humble man with a painful beginning. He spoke 4 languages fluently: Vietnamese, Cantonese, Cambodian, and Laos. And I believe he spoke 2 other languages subfluently, which is crazy to me because he didn't have that much education. When he was young, he lost his mom to an artillery shell that was misfired and it landed and it killed her instantly. And his aunt adopted him after that. But he's pretty much an orphan ever since he was like 8 years old. During my teen years, I would periodically drop by and see my grandpa. He would tell me his war stories. I would just have a beer with him here and there and then just sit there and just soak in his experiences because I felt like it brought a lot of value, and it did. A big part of me and of who I am today is because of him. He's very humble, and I think that's where I got my humbleness from. There are things that he does in life and he will not change it for anything or anyone. He's one of those guys that they don't do this, they don't do that, and that's what he does. I guess you can say he has a moral compass. I didn't have many role models growing up, so he was my main role model and a very big part of my life. So when he passed, I felt like a hole was pierced in my heart. To this day, I just feel like he's not gone. But he still lives with me. How I live my life now is like the mirror image of basically how he would live it, with some sprinkle in some of my own my own philosophy, I guess, of life. My grandpa fought in the French in the war, and oddly enough, he was a paratrooper for the French, which is ironic because Vietnam is a colonized country, so he would later join the South Vietnamese army. And this is a true story. His brother is a communist. Yeah, my grandpa came from like the border of Vietnam and China, and for some odd reason, he joined the French army, which his older brother was fighting, and he later on went south, and he didn't believe in communism, so he joined the South Vietnamese army and served them. So basically, he was enemies with his brother. But they still had contact. His older brother joined the Communist Party like at a pretty young age, and there's like pictures of him with Ho Chi Minh. My family is mostly from the South, and those are our enemies, right? We fought them. That's why we're over here. He was in the special forces. He would jump behind enemy lines and they would call in artillery on locations that had enemies. So he was like a high priority target. It wasn't until later on in my life that I realized he most likely had PTSD, severe PTSD, and paranoia. The doors always had to be locked, double bolted, and a chair anchored against all potential entrances. It was as if Grandpa was imprisoning himself. Grandpa was fortunate. His platoon was ambushed and they suffered a crushing defeat. Somehow he survived. He was shot through his jaw, immobilized, and left there to die. But for some odd reason, some locals after the battle saved him, and then reinforcements arrived and they found him, and he was hospitalized and discharged due to his injuries, which was most likely a twist of fate because it saved him. You see, when the communists came in, they had lists of people they wanted gone that had served the enemy government or Americans. And Grandpa being in the army for that long fighting against them, he was definitely on the list, but they didn't take him. This brings me back to the stories my oldest uncle tells me. During my grandpa's military days as a platoon leader, they would go and loot a lot because they would go and clear Viet Cong military bases. And my uncle told me he was waiting for him one day, but Grandpa came home with a screwdriver and some flatheads, and my uncle was like, "What? Why did you come home with this? Like, why didn't you grab something expensive so we can sell it for money? Because you know we were poor back then." And my grandpa's answer was, "I'm gonna build a bike shop, a bike and repair shop later, and these tools will help me out." But that tells you the character of this man. And he also told me that during Grandpa's military days, when they were like garrisoned out in enemy territory, he was well liked. He never let his soldiers do like random attacks and hurt the villagers because he's Vietnamese, and at the end of the day, we're all Vietnamese. He felt that in his heart, and I feel like that's the reason why they let him go, or they didn't purge him. When he shared his stories, he would pause, as if reliving a nightmare. And like now I see it. Yeah, definitely he had PTSD, but when I was there with him at that time, I didn't think of it as that. And I was always pushing to hear stories, because I always wanted to know where I came from, because I don't know much about my dad, so I felt like I used my grandpa as also like a father figure. And in hindsight, I feel like I was actually pushing him to relive those painful experiences and nightmares. Like that battle that took him out of service. He said that he watched his best friend throw a grenade and blew himself up. And his other best friend stepped on a mine and he was blown up too, which is hell, right? This war is hell. So there was the heavy drinking, and I feel like that's a coping mechanism, and I didn't understand this until I personally fought my own battle with alcohol. The great Roman philosopher Seneca said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And I feel like this quote really goes along with my grandpa and his life, because he definitely had guilt. Why was he still alive while his whole squad perished during that battle? If you think about it, that is a burden so heavy for a single person to carry. Obviously, they live in a different time than us, and we came from a poor country, so we didn't have therapy and stuff like that. And he didn't talk about it to anyone. So I guess in a sense you say I could be his counselor, because I always like ask some questions about it, but I could have made it worse, I guess. Or I could have made it better. I don't know. After his death, I can finally understand why he was so broken. I always thought he was such a strong man for going through all that stuff, and heroic, valiant, because he fought all those battles. Thinking about him now, he was just a broken old man when he passed away. That basically drank his way to his death. Even though the alcohol didn't kill him, he just lived a life where he was just numbing his pain. I just feel like I wish I understood this stuff more when I was around him more. But that's life, right? You live and you learn. I don't know if you guys ever read that book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a very good book. I would recommend you reading that. And it's basically, he's a Holocaust survivor. And in the book, he talks about man and what they go through, all these terrible experiences and atrocities, and what it can make you. But there's a quote that I remember from that book, relates to my grandpa. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. I feel like he couldn't get past the burden and the guilt. They call this survival's guilt, where like people that survive from all these freak accidents, they live with this. They wonder why they're still alive, and everyone that's with them died, and it changes them forever, right? And most of them go through these experiences and they get stuck, and they basically they either go drink themselves to death or turn to substance abuse, or they just, life is just not the same. But then there's also some that this changes them and they move forward. They survive for a reason, and that reason they carry with them. They live for a reason, so they must carry on and live a strong life. For all those people that couldn't make it. And I feel like my grandpa, he couldn't get past this. He won all those battles, but this mental battle definitely defeated him. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who fight silent battles and never show their scars. He survived the war, but the war never really left him. When a soul carries a burden too heavy, it finds ways to numb the pain. Healing does not always look brave. Sometimes it's just surviving another day. Legacy is not in the battle we fought, but in the stories we leave behind. It's strange how pain molds people, the people we admire most. I used to think he was just tough, but now I know he was just also trying to survive. His story isn't just of one war, but of resilience, pain, and the will to keep going despite the damage done. And that's what I carry forward, because I am, in a sense, his direct descendant. Sometimes the greatest tribute is to keep living, not just for him, but for ourselves. Even heroes are humans too. It's okay to hurt, to struggle, and to heal. It's okay to remember to honor the ones who shaped us, even when they are broken. Because broken does not mean weak. It means strength. So I say, live your life today as if it is your last, because you never know, it could be your last. But live it well. Live it with intention and a moral compass. And do not bring pain to people you love. One day, death will come knocking to you. But that's not what matters. What matters is the legacy you leave behind. So start building that. and keep on living every single day as if it's your last day. And I promise you, you will live a good life. My grandpa was a very humble man from a painful beginning, but he lived a great life because of the legacy he left behind.